What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Baddog back with another New York Yankee video. And in this video, we're going to talk about Brian Cashman. But first things first, the Yankees are losing 10-0 to Tampa Bay. Gerrit Cole with a very disappointing start today. The first four men scored in the game. The Yankees are down 4-0 before Gerrit Cole even recorded an out. It's the first time in his career that that's actually happened. But the Yankees will now fall to 4-10 when they're trying to close out a sweep. This is not the way you win a division or win playoff games or anything like that, man. This team needs to go for the jugular, and they just don't know how to do it. But let's talk about Brian Cashman, because Brian Cashman, to me, is one of the main proponents of why the Yankees have been a 500 team the last 2 years. And honestly, I think he's the most overrated GM I've ever seen in my life. For some reason, this guy gets credit for the Yankee dynasty, man. He took over in 98, okay? It's real hard to take over that team. You got Mariano Rivera as your closer. You got Andy Pettitte. You got Derek Jeter. You got Bernie Williams. You got Jorge Posada. So you got 2 Hall of Famers, 3 borderline Hall of Famers. And mind you have the greatest closer in the history of baseball, one of the greatest shortstops of all time. And then you have guys like Paul O'Neill and Tino Martinez on the team as well. David Cohn, David Wells. They're part of your pitching rotation. Yeah, real tough to win with that team. That wasn't built by Brian Cashman. That was built by Gene Michael and Bob Watson. That's what that team was built by, not Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman went in there, and yeah, he had a nice piece like Scott Brocious, and he did a couple things. He traded David Wells for Roger Clemens, although I never saw the, big deal about that, because Clemens was really bad in 1999. He was very good in 2000, but Clemens, he was never the Roger Clemens of old with the Yankees outside of the 2000 season. So I don't know. I don't think the Yankees really needed to do that, but he made a ton of bad trades. I remember him trading Ted Lilly for Jeff Weaver, and not that Ted Lilly was great by any means, but Ted Lilly cost nothing. You want to talk about watching their dollars and everything. And then Jeff Weaver turned into Kevin Brown, who was absolutely terrible. They picked up Javi Vasquez. They gave contracts to guys like Carl Pavano. The Randy Johnson experiment was a failure here. I mean, move after move after move just failed. They just failed. Every single one that he made. These big high-priced free agents that they brought in, Giambi was a disappointment here. Brian Cashman didn't know what he was doing. It's easy to be a GM when you're given a blank checkbook, okay, and bring in the highest price free agents you can bring in here. Alex Rodriguez they traded for A-Rod, but you get my point. They were able to sign A-Rod and everything else. Paying all these guys. They paid Jacoby Ellsbury an ungodly amount of money for what? That was probably the worst contract the Yankees ever had. He gave Aaron Hicks 7 years, $70 million. Aaron Hicks has never played a full season in his entire career, and he's like a career 248 hitter. The guy's no good. He's never had more than 119 hits in a season. He gives this guy 7 years. These are just some of the moves that he's made. But the real reason that Brian Cashman is a terrible GM is this, and this isn't just Brian Cashman, this is the Yankee scouting department. Since 1998, I can't think of one really impactful Yankee that he's drafted. Aaron Judge. Can you think of another one? Can you think of another really good player that was a New York Yankee for an extended period of time and produced as a New York Yankee since 1998? Excuse me. I'm having a hard time with it. I can't think of any offhand. Who did he draft? Jabba Chamberlain? Nothing. Phil Hughes? Ian Kennedy? Remember how great they were going to save the Yankee rotation? Ricky Leday? I don't know if Ricky Leday was his. I can't say Ricky Leday, but there was a number of guys. Eric Jagiello was one of them. There was just a bunch. There was a bunch of just bad draft picks. But can you tell me a guy that in 23 years as a GM, now granted, you don't know what these other guys are going to be. We don't know about Jason Dominguez. We don't know about Anthony, Volpe or whatever, how you say that. Volpe. Not sure how to say his last name, so don't kill me on that. But we don't know about these guys that he just drafted. But going back a ways, this guy has drafted nobody that's been impactful at all. Which is why the Yankees and Brian Cashman have to go out year after year and either make trades with teams to get guys like Aroldis Chapman, to get guys like Gleyber Torres, to get guys like Gio Urshela, to get all these guys. Now, I guess Brett Gardner was his, right? Brett Gardner was a Brian Cashman draft pick. So there you go. There's another guy that had an impactful Yankee career. So there's a couple of guys, Gardner and Judge. But that's why he's got to go out and trade for Joey Gallo. That's why he's got to go out and sign Gerrit Cole for an ungodly amount of money, because he doesn't draft anybody worth a damn. What kind of GM can't hit on any draft picks? Where are the Yankees' talent? Dante Bichette Jr. Bo Bichette was the guy, but no, let's get Dante Bichette Jr. There's also, this is going to be 12-0 now, as there's another home run there. There's also other mistakes that he made. George Steinbrenner back in 2003. It was at the end of the 2002 season. George Steinbrenner wanted this young outfielder from Minnesota. You guys might have heard of him. His name is David Ortiz. He told Brian Cashman, go out and get David Ortiz. And Cashman said, where do you want me to put him? So Cashman decided to balk at the idea of David Ortiz. Can you imagine David Ortiz in Yankee Stadium? Can you imagine what David Ortiz would have been? Because granted, he was not a first baseman at this juncture in his career. He was a platoon outfielder with guys like Dustin Moore, and I can't remember the other Minnesota outfielder that he platooned with. But at that time, you didn't know that he was a first baseman. Pretty much David Ortiz ended up being a DH anyway. So they could have just put him there. George Steinbrenner also wanted Vladimir Guerrero, and we ended up with Gary Sheffield. Not that Sheffield had a bad Yankee career at all, because he really didn't. He was pretty good for us. But Vladimir Guerrero was a Hall of Famer and one of the best players, one of the best hitters ever, one of the best players. I mean, the guy was almost a 40-40 guy. He had one of the strongest arms I've ever seen in my life. The guy could play. Vladimir Guerrero is one of the greatest players that nobody talks about. He was really, really good. One of my favorite players of all time. But these are the types of things that Brian Cashman has done. And this is why the Yankees have continued to struggle and have won one championship in 20 years. And that's because once the main cogs of the championship teams left, Brian Cashman could never replace them, either in free agency or with the draft. He's done nothing to make the Yankees better throughout the years. Sure, they get to the playoffs because they spend more money than anybody else. That's why you're going to get to the playoffs. But now when you see that, the Yankees aren't spending as much, and I know people say, hey, they got the second highest payroll, but listen, man, 4 of those players take up most of that payroll. DJ LeMahieu, by the way, he's not ours either. DJ LeMahieu, Aroldis Chapman, Giancarlo Stanton, not ours. Had to trade for him. We traded Starlin Castro. Starlin Castro wasn't ours either, but Stanton, Cole, LeMahieu, and Chapman, they make up about $96 million of the $200 million that the Yankees spend. So the rest of it is a bunch of guys that are lower priced that he traded for or that were drafted. Esteban Florial, how long is it taking him to get to the majors? And he's not even there anymore. He got scratched today. I don't know what the deal is with that. We've seen guys like Trey Amburgey. He's 26 years old, 27 years old. He barely got to the bigs. It took Aaron Judge a while to get to the bigs. What has Brian Cashman done for this team? Nothing. He's not a good GM. He's a terrible GM. And remember, he hired Aaron Boone, man. He's the one that hired Aaron Boone. This is not a good general manager at all. Forget about what happened in the late 90s. That wasn't his team. That's kind of like Jerry Reese getting credit for 2007. That was not Jerry Reese's team. The core of that team was Ernie Accorsi. You want to give, Jerry Reese credit for 2011, I'm on board with that. He built the 2011, outside of Eli Manning, pretty much 2011, Brandon Jacobs. But a lot of that was Jerry Reese. We'll give credit to Jerry Reese for 2011. And won't give him for 2007 because that team was already there. And it's the same thing with Brian Cashman. He took over that team in 98. That team was built. That team was set. That team was ready to rock and roll. That team was ready to go. And Joe Torre was not his hire. Joe Torre was, Stick Michaels' hire. So none of that had to do with Brian Cashman. None of it. You want to give him credit for spending $500 million on Sabathia, Teixeira, and A.J. Burnett to go along with Jeter, Pettit, Posada. All those guys were still there. And they had Nick Swisher, and they gave Hideki Matsui a ton of money. You want to give him credit for 2009 and buying a championship, what I always say the Yankees did buy that one, I'll give it to you. The rest of those championship teams, you can say the Yankees bought them. They didn't buy them. They traded for a lot of good players, and most of the guys on their team, a lot of the guys on their team were homegrown talent, and they're just able to pay them. But there's a big difference from what Gene Stick Michael and Bob Watson did in the late 80s and early 90s building the team. And yes, it's been brought to my attention, and I completely agree. If George Steinbrenner was not suspended in the late 80s or 1991, whenever that happened, for tampering, actually, I forgot if that was tampering with Winfield or there was some political thing. I forgot exactly why he got suspended for the league. But we may not have had those guys. So again, that just goes to show even more how important Bob Watson and Gene Michael were to the Yankees. Brian Cashman was not. Brian Cashman is not. Brian Cashman needs to be fired. This team is bad. It's not bad. It's mediocre. And they don't do a lot of things well. And winning consistently is one of those. And then yesterday they go out and they get Joey Gallo. I'm not going to kill Joey Gallo. Listen, maybe I came off a little bit raw, I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say here. maybe I came off a little harsh on my video yesterday about Joey Gallo. It's not that I don't like Joey Gallo. My point is the Yankees have enough Joey Gallos. They don't need. I know he's a great fielder. What would he do, man? The guy strikes out 170 times and has a low batting average. We have enough non-contact guys that can hit the ball over the moon. We don't need him, was my point. There's another home run. It's 14-0. I don't even know who the hell is pitching right now. Oh, Abreu. Just let him get killed out there. But yeah, this is an embarrassment, man. This is the Yankees all year. They take 2 steps forward, they take 2 steps back. They took another step back today, and Aaron Boone will just talk about, whatever. We know what he does. But anyway, getting off topic. I'm going to end this video now because the Rays have put up a 10 spot and I'm about to go puke. Anyway, that's all I got in this video. Let me know what you think about Brian Cashman. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. It's the Bad Diggity Dizzle. I'm out. Peace.